Hello everyone, it's me, the Guide Knight, and this is part 2 of my platformer game. It's called Ninja Run. It's basically a 2D endless runner game where you play this ninja girl and you shoot enemies with your kunai. Kill them. Last time we basically made sure we can move our girl around or our player around. No jumping yet, but still that is where we left off. So in this tutorial, we're going to add a collision shape to our player. We're going to add the pipes and we're going to add some gravity and maybe add the parallax layer, the background. So let's see how far along we can go. So let's first start with the collision shape. Let's open our player scene. We can click on the player on the left side and then Control A to add a new child. The child node will be of type collision shape 2D. Collision shape 2D. And here on the right side, in the inspector tab, you can actually create the actual shape. We can have a rectangle, but for now we will not use a rectangle, but we'll use a capsule shape 2D. And this is very distracting that it's always running, so I'm going to change the animation to idle and disable playing. So this happens from the animated sprite. Go back to the collision shape and you can roughly drag it around. You can move it by clicking Control and left click so that you can drag it around in an easier fashion. So I'm just, if you only want to move it and not like do this, which I kind of did with only Control, you can click W, so you move it, and then once you start moving it, you can lock it to the axis. So I'm just gonna roughly do this, right? Seems like good enough collision shape. All right, so save our player, and now we need to add the pipes. For those, we will use a tile map and a tile set, but we need to create the tile set first. So go to the resources, right click, and go to a new folder, and then call it tile set. In the tile set folder, we will create a new scene first, where we will create our tiles, and then we will convert the scene to a tile set. So go to new scene, click the new scene, choose other node and just use node. You can call it pipes if you want, or just leave it at node. And then add a child node, which will be basically a sprite. A normal sprite, not an animated sprite, nothing fancy. For this, we'll use our assets, the pipes assets. You can drag and drop the assets directly into the texture here of the sprite. First, you see that they're still blurred. I really hope they do fix like the preset and make it remember, because this is kind of one of the things that's a little bit annoying so far. Fortunately, they're relatively few. And I'm just gonna go ahead and save my my tile set like pipes TSCN. I think I'm using lowercase for every scene, so I'm just gonna keep on using lowercase. You can use uppercase if you want. That doesn't really matter. I mean, capitalize the first letter. So let's go ahead back to our scene, click on our scene, click on our sprite, and let's go and click on region. Region basically means that we don't want to use the whole scene, the whole image. We want to use only a part of this image to make sure we create the correct sprites. So enable it. And then here in the lower region, you see the texture region. In the texture region, you can draw stuff around. And let me zoom in and zoom out a little bit. And whatever you draw is basically your sprite. So if I leave it like that and go ahead and close it, this will be my sprite. But I don't want to have that. I want to have some of those vertical stuff, right? But if I actually try to draw it around, it's a little bit messy, hard to navigate and so on. So I'm gonna go ahead and enable grid snap and make it 32 by 32 pixels the size. Like there is no offset, the step is 32 by 32, and this will make it make sure that we have only one box. We can select only one box. This fortunately works quite well in this image. So let me pick, you can pick any color you want. In my example, I was using the blend, this blend color, But here I may actually use the bluish one. So let's go ahead and use the blue one. So then you save, and this is all the things we need right now. We'll add more later, but for now we just add one pipe that we can stand on. So if we just do it like that, we can create our tile set and the player will pass through it because we don't have a collision shape. So in order for it to add a collision shape, we can just add a collision shape 2D. But you see that there is a problem, right? What does it say? Those things are very useful to look around and see, look at and see what they actually say. Here says collision shape 2D only serves to provide a collision shape to a collision object 2D derived node. Please only use it to as a child for area 2D, static body 2, rigid body 2D, kinematic body 2D, and so on. So this means that the sprite is not of type collision object 2D. So we need to create a collision object 2D, like collision object 2D. But there is no collision object 2D because this is the parent class. It's an abstract probably or something like that. So but you still, if you just like type it, you see that there's like kinematic body, rigid body, and static body. For this case we will use static body. So let's move the collision shape under the static body, then it will almost stop complaining, but it will still say that there is no actual shape, right? And we will create a shape by going to the inspector, and then in this case we use a rectangle shape. And you can enable like grid snap if you want to, but for me it's not always convenient because you have to also enable like the offset and so on, make it like smaller. I have to actually, if I want to like work with that, I probably make it like 4 pixels or so, which is a little bit too small the size, right? I mean, it also doesn't really exactly work. So what you can actually do in that case, I'm gonna go ahead and revert it to 8 pixels. What you can do is click on the rectangle here and just type in the size you would like to have. Like in that case, it's we have 32 by 32. I guess this is half of the size, so this is like oh, it's almost half the size, like 12, and this is like 32. So like the x dimension is 16, so from here on to here is like 16 pixels, so 16 pixels on the left side as well, so total 32. And the whole thing is 12 pixels tall because we're mirroring. This is 16 by 6 in this case. So let's save it and export it to a tile set. So go to the scene and then you can actually convert it to a tile set. And I'm just gonna go here in the tile set and just save it under pipes. And then the resource type like res. Basically those are the or .res, or I'm using the tres. So tileset resource or whatever. I don't know exactly what the name stands for. Maybe it's really tileset resource. So in our world now, we're gonna go ahead and click our world or open it from here. We will add a tile map. The tile map uses a tile set, which we can drag and drop from our just created tile set. And if I click on this sprite right now, I will be able to draw stuff, but it's the wrong size. So I will click on cell, expand it, and change the x and y to 32 by 32. So in that case, if I click around, now I can draw it like that. If I want to undo something, I'll just click right mouse button, and with the left mouse button, I can draw stuff. But there is still no gravity, so I see them, and I don't move respectively to them, right? Because I don't have a camera. So let's go ahead and add a camera. This is really easy. I go to my player scene and then add a child node, not sub resources. I want to have a child node. Add a child node, and the child node will be camera 2D. Surprise, surprise. For this, I only need to make it the current camera because it's already a child of the player and the player moves around. This means that it moves respectively to the player. So I don't actually need to lock it on my player. I can just leave it be. And I already have a camera that moves around. If you want, you can experiment with the camera options a little bit. There's like some smoothing. You can enable smoothing. In that case, when I move around, it doesn't really move like immediately, but there's some sort of smoothing. Depends on what your preferences are and so on. I would just leave it disabled for now because I kind of like wanna have this kind of feeling for now. I don't know, maybe I change it in the future. But we still like gravity, right? Those are properties inside our player. So let me go ahead here and create some of those. Like I already have the max speed, the speed and so on, and the friction, but I don't have gravity. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a constant, put it above my variables and call it gravity. And I'm gonna use like, I don't know, some variable like 40 or 100, I don't know. We can adjust that later. So, and then another constant, which will be, I already have the max speed defined. I think I need to have the jump impulse. And let's make it 800 or 900. This is basically our, like when we jump, what's the impulse of that in the upward direction. And here we have some manipulation of our speed, right, of our velocity. We have the movement, and then we have the slowing down. So basically acceleration, movement, slowing down. And now remove this by cutting it and putting it in a function. And the function I'll just call just velocity. By the way, if you're wondering, this is called snake case, and this is called camel case. If you're interested, basically if you type a word and then every single other word following it is directly connected to it, and with an uppercase first letter, that is called camel case because of the humps of the camels, and this is called, I guess, snake case because it goes on the ground and every single word is separated by another underscore and it's in the lowercase. Godot usually uses snake case, so that's advisable to also adhere to this convention. All right, so adjust velocity. And I'm just pasting the code here. You can test it if you want to see if it still works, but we didn't add anything fancy. One thing I would like to change is to basically rename my speed to acceleration. I can just rename every single thing here, or I can just press Ctrl, Shift, and F, and then I will find all occurrences of this, and I can press replace or whole words, because otherwise I will also catch like max underscore speed, and I don't want to have that. So I'll just select whole words, and click on replace. Here you can see the different occurrences by selecting them, and now just replace it with acceleration. Okay, replacing it, no undo. And why I want to have that? Because I don't want to have like an abrupt movement, like of, I don't know, I'm making the acceleration of 100. And right now, it's either 0 or nothing, right? So it's either minus acceleration, plus acceleration, or 0. So those are the three movement values I have. So in order for me to change that, I'll just make it sure that I change the velocity by this amount. And previously, I was assigning the velocity to this amount. So this is basically equal. You can, this is basically a shorthand of writing this. Like velocity x is equals velocity x minus acceleration. And in that case, I'll just velocity x equals velocity x plus acceleration. Or I would just use the shorthand, which is much easier, minus x and plus, minus equal and plus equal. So this will add the acceleration to the current value and subtract the acceleration from the current value. And I also will remove the else. So what do you expect to happen right now? If I do this, probably nothing much happens. Why nothing much happens? Let me just check. Okay, we have our acceleration equals to 100. We do change the velocity. We have moved toward. Action pressed. This is interesting. And animate player. So in order for this to flip it and to run it, needs to be more than 0, right? So could it be that it gets... oh, that's a little bit weird. like our friction is greater than our acceleration in that case. So I guess we never really get to move around, right? But right now, if we make our friction less and it takes like more time to stop, I can make like 80 or so. Then we will accelerate endlessly, and we don't want that, right? We want to actually make sure we accelerate with a normal amount. And how we do that is basically by defining the maximum speed. We already have that, 600. We can make it even more or less, or whatever. But we need to calculate that. So let's do it. Velocity x will be adjusted right now. It can be more than the maximum and less than the minus maximum. So we will just use a small formula that will be using the max and minimum functions that are built in. So this will be the maximum of minus max speed. I'm just going to explain in a bit what I'm doing. And the minimum of max speed and velocity x. So what is this? Like, first of all, the minimum of max speed and velocity x is basically the minimum value of 600 and whatever you have. So if you have like this thing moving to the right, like with speed of 1000, it will be capped to 600. So I won't be able to move to the right with more than 600. And on the other side, we have the maximum of something that is undefined on the left side. So it can be minus 1000, minus 5000, because x can be negative, where we can make it negative when we move to the left. And it's on the right side, we're moving to the right, it's capped to 600. So minus unlimited to 600. And the maximum of that is determined by the maximum of minus max speed and this thing. So this is already capped on the right side, and this is just capping it on the left side as well. So if we have minus 1000 here, the maximum of minus 600 and minus 1000 will be still minus 600. And in that case, we will also reach the maximum speed on the left side. So after this small explanation, let me check if it works. It seems to be working. So what we need to do now is we need to add the gravity somehow, right? So let me just do that quickly. Velocity y, because we're changing the y vector, not the x vector variable, it will be plus equal gravity. If you remember correctly, this is just the shorthand of writing this thing, right? Equals velocity. I'm just going to leave it like that so that you can reference it if you forget about it and don't know about it. I don't know. And then we also need to make sure that we don't fall endlessly, like, because we could also reach unbelievable speeds falling down. I can maybe show you. So I'm staying here, staying here, staying here, and this should be increasing my y velocity. And if I just move here, I will fall. And the reason for that, why I'm not falling that much, is because of my friction, right? Because the friction is actually also affecting the y velocity. And if I stay here a little bit more, right now I'm falling more rapidly. I can actually show you that. I can print it. Velocity y. And you see, okay, it's 100. Why is it 100? Because my gravity is 100. If I actually remove this, I wonder what will happen if I remove this. Let me just remove this. Okay, it's still 100. That is not something I was expecting. I was expecting it to be actually changing. I have my initial velocity, and every single duration I move with. That's interesting. Yeah, okay. There was a slight oversight on my side, and that is basically this thing happened. Like, move and slide actually stops our velocity, and I was having some printings here. So this means that we maybe don't need that, but actually we do, because this will not happen. This like only happens when we are on the floor, right? but doesn't happen when we are in the air. Because we are in the air, nothing stops us, and this move and slide does not like set it to 0. So we can have like a lot of movement, and maybe that's what the real world is about, but even here you can reach some terminal velocity or whatever because of air resistance. So we're just gonna use our max speed to cap that as well. So we can do this by velocity y equals the minimum of max speed and the velocity y. So now we make sure that we cannot fall with more than certain value. Okay, so we need to also add the jump, right? Let me just copy this and change this to action just pressed, because we don't want to be able to constantly jump and maybe fly like a jetpack, and change the action to jump. And here I will adjust my y velocity, and then I'm going to add my jump impulse. So this basically is a little bit boring because we don't jump much, and also we can jump multiple times. The jump for multiple times can be remedied very easily, and is on floor. It's basically a function that is connected to the move and slide, and it's updated there. And how it does know it's on the floor, it's because we determine the upward direction. So it's if it has a collision on the lower side, basically that's facing up, then this means that this is kind of on the floor. And let me go back to my script. And this will prevent us from jumping multiple times. Like we can only jump once, right? But we can also, for instance, for the gravity, or I mean for the friction, we only probably want to have friction while we are on the ground, right? So let's do this and add here as well another if is on floor. And then we'll add the friction, because we don't want to have friction in the air. Or maybe we can have another friction, air friction or whatever, that's a lot less. That can also work. But basically, now we have this. Maybe we can make our jump impulse a little bit higher. I don't know, maybe 1200. Maybe our gravity will be a little bit less, 550. Maybe 900, and you can play around with those values. For now, I'll leave it like that. We don't have our jump animation and stuff. We'll probably be adding that in the next video, but we can run around. You can also use your time map to create some like some sort of level, maybe that I don't know, you just run around and experiment. And yeah, and you can basically have your small level here with only those pipes. And we will add our parallax background in the end of this video. So let's go ahead and do that and create in our world scene, create another node called parallax background, then create another child of it, parallax layer, and then create a child of it called sprite. This is basically how it works. Each parallax background has multiple layers, and you can determine like which layer, like how fast each layer moves and so on in regards to the player. Right now we'll add our islands to the sprite texture, and you see that because we didn't like, first of all, it's not showing here, and second of all, it moves exactly with my speed. This is because in the parallax layer, you have something like called motion. This is the scale, basically. It moves like, for now, each pixel I move, the player moves, or the camera moves. This layer also moves 1 pixel. So we're gonna do it 0.2 actually, in both directions. So for 5 pixels I move, the background will move 1 pixel. Yep, it's like that, but it's still not really mirroring or anything. So I will go here, and under mirroring, I will basically type 960. This is the size of my background, and 640. And this will actually create this, right? And I can check if it works. It's not really showing here on this side. Can you guess why? Because probably it's not really centered around our player, right? If we can move it around a little bit, maybe move it, select the parallax backgrounds, click W, and I'm not sure if I can actually move the parallax background. Maybe I can move the layer only. But if I move the layer, probably this should not happen, right? Maybe I can move it down a little bit to maybe where the player is or so. Then it should not have those, or maybe it has it still. But maybe we can also pick here and ignore camera. I don't know. It took me some tweaking actually to figure this out in the sample project. I will check it out and maybe we can figure this out next time. But this is it for this episode, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. We're making some progress. We still have somewhat of a medium or too long way to go. So I hope you're having fun. And if you do, please give me your thumbs up and add a comment. And I will be glad to read your feedback and help you solve some problems if you're having any. So thank you for watching, guys. Stay safe, stay cool, and stay awesome as I know you are. Bye bye.